Welcome to the Premier League preview show here on the Commentary Hub, also live on Commentary Hub 2, JB Sports, focus on football, and due to technical reasons, we weren't able to be broadcasted tonight over on Storm FM. I'm Russ Vernon, and I'm going to be the host this evening, and I'm going to fetch on my co-host with me as well tonight, which is Paul James, and we're also joined by my good friend Luke Charlton from Football Live as well. First of all, Paul, how are you doing, my friend? Are you okay?
Yes, I'm well, thank you, Russ. And how are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you, my friend. And we're also delighted to welcome Luke Charlton onto the commentary for the first time. How are you doing, Luke? You okay, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me.
Not a problem, my friend, not a problem. And we're going to be discussing now all of the games that you saw on the screen right just there from Saturday lunchtime all the way till Monday. So I'll just run you through the fixtures. Man City against Liverpool, Burnley against West Ham, Luton against Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, Brighton, Sheffield United, Bournemouth, Brentford v Arsenal, Spurs against Aston Villa, Everton against Manchester United, and Fulham against Wolverhampton Wanderers. The games which haven't got a kick-off time next to them or a date next to them is a Saturday 3 p.m. kick-off for you in the UK. Before we get into previewing the games, let me just say what commentaries we've got coming up later in the weekend. On Saturday evening, we will be joining myself and Paul James will be bringing you commentary from the Brentford game against Arsenal, 5:30 kick-off on air around about 5 o'clock with a comprehensive results show in the build-up to that one. But hopefully we'll have our very own Nicholas Jones joining us to give us the comprehensive results from the weekend's matches on Saturday afternoon from the Premier League and also the Football League as well. We also got live commentary on Sunday with myself and Luke Charlton with Tottenham Hotspur against Aston Villa. Kickoff is at 2 o'clock. Paul James, who's going to be on commentary for the Brentford Arsenal game, will be the presenter for that match on Sunday afternoon. We're looking forward to bringing you that one as well. Now let's touch upon the first game of the weekend, and it's the big game of the weekend. It's Manchester City against Liverpool, and here's some of the stats which I looked up earlier on in the day. And in all competitions, Man City have won 60 times. There's been 56 draws, with Liverpool coming out on top with 108 wins. In the Premier League, City have won 12 games, been 19 draws and 21 wins for Liverpool. The form guide is for Manchester City: draw, win, 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 loss. For Liverpool is win, draw, win, win, draw. Biggest wins this season for Man City has been at home against Bournemouth 6-1, and for Liverpool at home against Aston Villa. When you look at those form guide there, Paul, with Man City and Liverpool, how do you see this game going? Who do you reckon is going to come out on top in this one? And we'll ask for your prediction a little bit later on. But with that form guide, how do you see the game going there?
Well, it's very difficult to predict. Liverpool have had a bit of a shaky start, but recently now have kind of come into their own a little bit. They've started to perform well. Mo Salah is scoring at random right now and freely. It's going to be a very difficult one to predict that, Russ. They're always very close games for the most part. I mean, you've had a couple of City 4-1 victories in the last sort of 5 meetings, but other than that, they've really been separated by 1 goal for Liverpool there and 2 ties. So it's really, really difficult to split the 2 teams up. There's maybe about a 12-goal-to-8 advantage in favour of City. Manchester City, I think this season are missing Kevin De Bruyne, and I think obviously Erling Haaland is as well, because I think Haaland accounted for 30% of his goals were assisted by Kevin De Bruyne last season as well. So it is a pretty good chance for Liverpool, I would say, to try and turn one over on City. But it's very, very tight to predict, Russ.
Yes, I think it's going to be a tight one to predict as well. We'll give our prediction out towards the end of the preview from this one. But first of all, Luke, what do you reckon to this game? You just seen the form there, and I'll just put it back up to just run you through it again briefly. For City, it's a draw, win, 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 loss. For Liverpool, it's a win, draw, win, win, draw. So how do you see this game going?
I think, yeah, as Paul touched on, it's going to be very hard to call, but it's always competitive matches between these two. I mean, in recent seasons, it's been fairly fairly league defining as to who's going to go on and be the victor and the champion in the league in some of these matches. What with it being very, very closely run in recent years for Liverpool, particularly with the result they had at City's ground. I think you have to kind of look at Pep's record at home as well, being very, very strong for City. So to look kind of past City coming out with a 3-point series always difficult. But Liverpool have been a team that have slowly built into the season, as Paul said. And I think the emergence of some of the new signings like Dominic Szoboszlai, he's been a revelation, I think, for them in midfield. And they've been able to add on goals into a side that was kind of lacking in that department with previous iterations of their midfield, with Henderson and Fabinho kind of popping up with important goals here and there, but having a consistent goal scorer in Szoboszlai and McAllister being involved as well now in a lot of the build-up with goals. It's a kind of nice dynamic that Klopp has for the side. So I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool put in a really dominant performance and caught City off guard, especially coming off of the back of an international break. But when City are playing at home, it's always hard to go against them.
Yes, absolutely. And there's too many in form in both of these sides. As Paul touched upon, mentioned one of them, and we also mentioned, he actually mentioned both of them. And this is their stats head-to-head in terms of Erling Haaland and Mo Salah. And then I'll get your opinions on who you think is going to be the game changer between the two players, Paul and Luke, in just a moment. But we'll look at the stats first for Salah and Haaland, 12 appearances apiece. Haaland leading by 3 more goals, which is 13-10. Headed goals is 3 for Haaland, 1 for Salah. 1 with his right foot for Salah, none for Haaland. 9 with his left foot for Haaland, 8 for Mo Salah. 3 each from the penalty spot. Haaland's had 46 shots, with 27 of those on target, with Salah having 38 shots, only 17 on target. Twice as in the woodwork as Haaland, once Mo Salah. 13 big chances missed by Erling Haaland, 4 for Mo Salah. And then there's 3 assists for Haaland, 4 for Salah. 135 passes Haaland's completed in the Premier League this season, with Mo Salah completing 374. 3 crosses from Haaland to 16 for Salah, and 3 big chances created by Haaland, 11 for Mo Salah there. So when you look at those sort of stats, Luke, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact for you in terms of the two players in the game, and why do you say that player?
I think it's clear to see there that Salah is definitely the more influential player in terms of the whole side. I think with the chances created, he's had almost triple the amount of passes that Haaland has. So it shows he's much more influential and involved in the build-up play. But I think Haaland can always be a game changer because of his goals. And I think it's his responsibility within the side is a lot more focused on putting the ball in the back of the net than maybe Salah's is, because with the absence of Mane now and a lot of changes in Liverpool's attacking setup with Diaz and Nunez and Jota rotating a lot alongside Salah, he clearly is the X factor for them. So he's had a bit of a different role this season, where he's a lot more involved in build up and kind of creating space for his teammates. So I think his influence, if he has a good game, he'll have probably a greater impact on the overall play than Haaland having a good game. But Haaland having a good game means he might score 3 or 4. So the end of the day, the sport relies on players putting the ball in the back of the net. So I think at the come to the end of the game, we'll notice whether Salah's had a better game or not, more so than Haaland. But City can score from anywhere, and I think Haaland is proof of that. And I think you touched on the absence of De Bruyne, and it's a big impact for Haaland, which is why he hasn't necessarily been able to reach the kind of astronomical impact he had last season, where he's just having a very, very, very good season, which for his standards maybe isn't as good as it could be.
Yes, absolutely. And I would agree with you there, especially like Paul said, he's definitely missing Kevin De Bruyne in his to help him supply and set him up for those goals. And I think City are missing them in the little bit as well. Paul, who do you see being the key difference out of the two players we've just touched upon there? And Luke, very well analysed both players.
Well, they're 2 different types of players, aren't they? I get the feeling that Haaland is more of an out-and-out goal scorer. He's not going to set up a huge amount of goals, but he's going to score a huge amount. I think Mohamed Salah is very well capable of setting up goals as well as scoring them. That perhaps gives Salah a little bit of an advantage. But I think at any time, as Luke rightly mentioned, Haaland can just turn over 3 or 4 goals without breaking a sweat. So I think when you compare these two, it's almost like comparing apples to oranges. But I think both of these players are a defensive, a threat to the opposing defence. But with Manchester City, it's not just Haaland. They've got Jeremy Doku, for example, who's scoring and providing assists as well. He's got a couple of goals, but he's also provided 5 assists this season as Jeremy Doku. So there's also him playing alongside Haaland can help fill that gap for De Bruyne. As for Salah, I think he's well capable of getting a couple of goals himself. This one is going to be very, very tough to call, and I think both defences are going to have a very, very long afternoon, if I'm being honest.
Yes, you're probably right there, Paul. You're probably right. And Paul, while we still got you here, what's your prediction from that game, my friend?
Oh boy, I knew you was going to ask me. Okay. I actually think Liverpool are capable of winning, and I think they're capable. I think Liverpool is going to win by 2-1. That's my prediction. That's just my opinion, my prediction.
Yes, thank you very much there, Paul. And Luke, what about you, my friend? Where do you see this game being made at? What scoreline are you going for?
I think on the balance of things, I think neither side have been great defensively, I think, this season. So I'd be very surprised if it was scoreless, but touch wood, that's not, I'm not tempting fate here. But I think I'm going to go for a draw. I think just because of that element of City's strong record at home, and there's some inconsistencies, I think, for both of them at the moment in different areas, in different ways. And again, like you see when, for example, Pep is very reliant on certain players and certain systems. So when Rodri is out of the side, they're a completely different team to when he's playing. And I think there's some elements of that Klopp's high energy football will always try to exploit with Guardiola. But I personally think it'll be 2-2. That's kind of what I'm going for. I'm going for a lot of action, a lot of intensity, probably a cagey affair for the first half. But then I think someone will score, maybe some VAR controversy, who knows? But we'll see. And I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully there's no VAR controversy in this game like there were for England in midweek against North Macedonia, shall we say. But we won't go there tonight. For me, I'm going to go, I think it's going to be a tied game as well. We've gone one for a Liverpool win from Paul. We've gone for a draw. Now, do I agree with Luke and says it's going to be a draw? Do I agree with Paul saying it's going to be a Liverpool win? Or am I going to be the other one that's going to go for a City win to make the City fans happy that someone's actually gone for them to win in this game? And I think maybe, like you mentioned, Paul Doku's a good replacement for De Bruyne at the moment, but plays a different type of position to Kevin De Bruyne. Haaland's, as Lou mentioned, Haaland can score as many goals as he can if these balls are supplied correctly to him. Salah's in form as well for Liverpool. I think it's going to be a close game. And I'm going to go for a City win in this one. And I think there's going to be 5 goals in it. I'm going City 3, Liverpool 2 in this one on Saturday lunchtime. Make sure you check it out if you can find where you can watch it or listen to it if you can't watch it. Unfortunately, we will not be able to bring that one here on the commentary. Next game we're going to look upon. Me and Paul's going to look upon, and we'll have Luke Charlton back in a few moments with his thoughts a bit later on. So we'll just save about for him for now. Is our featured game, Paul, which we're going to be covering on Sunday between Spurs and Aston Villa. This is going to be a good game, this one. How do you see this one going, Paul? And who do you reckon is going to come out on top? Because since the transformation of Unai Emery to Villa Park, he's done a remarkable good job with Aston Villa.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things to take into consideration here as well. First of all, are the wheels falling off Spurs? Is the party bus coming to a halt, so to speak? They've had such a good start to the season, but we've seen this so many times with Tottenham in the past. They've had good starts to the season and the wheels have come off. losing 4-1 to Chelsea at home is as good as Chelsea have been in recent weeks and have picked themselves up really well. They can't be losing 4-1 to Chelsea like that and expecting to be in a Champions League position. Another defeat to Wolves away as well. They are on the back now of some pretty bad form, whereas if you look at Villa, on the other hand, 3 wins in 4 games. Okay, 4-1 victory over West Ham, 3-1 over Fulham. They did lose at home away to Nottingham Forest, but returned with a 3-1 win to Fulham. They have done a really good job this season as Unai Emery, and they are 5th in the league. You're looking at a very informed team. I think this one is going to be tight, but I believe Villa can win this game.
And for me, Paul, I think Villa can win this game as well. I think it's going to be, like you mentioned, Paul, it's going to be a tight game. I think both teams will have a really good go, because we know what Tottenham at home do like to have a go, especially under Ange Postecoglou. I think that both teams will have a go, but I think, like you, Villa may be too strong for them in the end, especially with the form of Ollie Watkins at Villa this season and his transformation from under Unai Emery as well. He's got a remarkable amount of goals into so many games under Unai Emery. Leon Bailey performing well for them there as well. So I think Villa will edge this one in our featured game on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. And I will go for, and I'll give my prediction here first. I'm going to go for Tottenham Hotspur 0, Aston Villa 2, with Ollie Watkins amongst the goals for Aston Villa. Paul, how do you see this game going? Well, tell me how you think the game's going to go. What do you think the score prediction is going to be?
Okay, well, I think that's a very reasonable prediction, Russ, actually. I was actually going to predict that myself, and I know we probably want to predict different scores because that makes for good watching, but I think in this case I'm going to have to agree with you. I think it is going to be 2-0 to Villa.
Yes, and I think we could see some plenty of good goals in that game. Obviously, it's going to be a good match that we're going to watch. Next up is a game which is taking place at St James's Park between Newcastle United and Chelsea this weekend. And we'll just have a look at some of the stats here for this game. In all competitions, as we can see up on the screen, I'll read these out for you, Paul. We've got Newcastle with 55 wins, 14 draws during the time. Chelsea 78 wins in all competitions. Now into the Premier League, Newcastle have had 14 wins over Chelsea, 13 draws and 29 wins for the Blue Half of Chelsea, or the Blues. Blue Half of London, shall we say. New form guide for Newcastle is a defeat, a win, draw, win, draw. For Chelsea, it's draw, win, defeat, draw, win. Biggest wins this season for both teams is for Newcastle, 8-0 away to Sheffield United. And the biggest win for Chelsea this season so far is the 4-1 win away at, so to say, Paul, but your team, Burnley at Turf Moor. That 4-1 win at Turf Moor there. How do you see this game going then, Paul, in this one, mate? Because I think with Newcastle's own form, I think they can really cause a few teams problems at St James's Park, and I can see St James's Park being a fortress.
Yeah, St James's Park is a very difficult place for anybody to go and get anything from. They have played very, very well this season, but they're also on a bit of some sketchy form as well. They've just lost 2-0 away at Bournemouth. They did have the victory over Arsenal at home, but let's be honest, there was some controversy in relating to that goal. Previous draw away at away at Wolves, and a draw at West Ham. Their only real comprehensive victory, it has to be said, has come in the last 5 games, is at home to Crystal Palace, 4-0. So, I mean, Chelsea at the moment are starting to take on some form. They're starting to look a lot better than what they was. I think I said at the just before we went live on air, I was talking to Luke and I said the same thing. They've started to turn things around now. They're starting to look a little bit more solid. Mudryk particularly is looking very impressive at the moment. And of course, Nicholas Jackson, I'm a big fan of him. He's very quick. I actually think Chelsea can win this game. I think it'll be tight, but I think Chelsea can win this game.
Yeah, I can see why you think that Chelsea can win this game, because who would have thought them going to Tottenham, who were top of the league at that point, and getting a win at Tottenham. Not many people would have said Tottenham were going to lose, especially with how they started under Ange Postecoglou. And then I think with that one, the red card in that game probably changed the dynamic of the game in terms of Chelsea going on to win the match. Because I think if it was 11v11, then I think Chelsea would have probably won that game at Spurs. No, I mean Spurs would have won that game against Chelsea, should I say. Because I think at that point Tottenham were well on top, and it was still a chance for Romero to get sent off. And then Doherty got sent off in the second half, which made it even more easy for Chelsea. So I think, well, as mentioned, St James's Park is a tough place to go though, Paul. And I think with the crowd behind them, Newcastle may get something from this game. You think Chelsea may get something from this game? What's your prediction for this one?
I'm going to go for I think it's going to be tight. I'm going to go for 1-0 Chelsea.
And me, I think it's going to be tight as well. And I think there's going to be 3 goals in it. And I think it's going to be Newcastle 2, Chelsea 1. I think Chelsea will just be edged out by Newcastle. With Newcastle, and that's just with Newcastle's own form that they've got, which is what I think will be is going to happen in that game on Sunday. No, Saturday afternoon, should I say, sorry. Which is going to be a very, very good game for people to watch, and hopefully we'll have plenty of goals in that game for people to listen to as well. So next up, we're going to go to the evening kickoff, and it's a game which we're covering on the channel, and it's Brentford against Arsenal. Arsenal now beginning to start wobbling a little bit in recent weeks, losing to West Ham in the Carabao Cup and then not playing back-to-back good performances. For the match we lost out, Declan Rice, when he limped off for England, and Saka went off as well with injury in the first games, but they managed to, well, especially Saka in the first game, and the second game Rice did well, but then had to come off to be replaced by Phillips in that game, played a bit further deep forward when Phillips came on, and it was a bit hit and miss towards the end of that game, Declan Rice. But Brentford have had some good games against Arsenal at the GTEC Community Stadium, and I think this is going to be a tough game for Arsenal to go to, Paul. I think Arsenal may lose this one. How do you see this game going? Obviously, myself, it's going to be alongside yourself for the game, but how do you see the game in terms of what you to expect from it? What do you see happening in this game?
Well, I think your views on Arsenal struggling may be a little overstated, Russ. Just based on the fact that when I look at these last 5 games, they've had some pretty comprehensive results too. 5-0 against Sheffield United and 3-1 against Burnley. Yes, I know they lost to Newcastle given that controversial goal. A 2-2 draw against a decent Chelsea side, and including a 1-0 victory over the champions. So I don't think that it's such a travesty right now with Arsenal. I think they are not playing the best football that they could play. I don't think they did against Burnley. I thought they could have played a lot better. But I think, to be honest with you, I can only see this going one way. But at the same time, you can see here, if you look at Bournemouth, they've had some good results. They've given Burnley a spanking as well. Well, who hasn't? But they have lost to an out-of-form Manchester United game, an out-of-form Manchester United team, and they were comprehensively beaten by Liverpool 3-0 as well. But they have had good victories. West Ham, Chelsea at the time were not at the best, but they're a pretty good team of Brentford. They're a solid team. It's not going to be an easy job for Arsenal. But I do see Arsenal winning this one. I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal on this one, Russ.
Okie dokie, Paul. Thank you very much. I'm going for a narrow victory for Brentford. I'm going to say 2-0 to 2-1, should I say, to Brentford in this one, Paul. I'm going 2-1. I think Arsenal will score, but I think Brentford's with the home advantage will be enough to get them over the line in that game against Arsenal at the weekend in our featured match on Saturday evening in the Premier League here on the country, which will follow the comprehensive results show where myself and Paul will be on there, and we'll hopefully have Nicholas reading out the comprehensive results on Saturday afternoon for you around about 5 o'clock in the evening. Make sure you tune into that here on the country. That is for the coverage of Brentford against Arsenal this Saturday. Next up, we're going to welcome back Luke Charlton as we're now going to get on to our next match. And this is a game which not only we have talking points regarding the actual football, and we're going to be checking about football. This has also got some other topics off the pitch stuff as well. And first of all, we'll just mention the game. It's Everton against Manchester United. Wins for Everton in all competitions is 71, draws 47, 93 wins for Manchester United. In the Premier League is 10 wins for Everton, 39 for Man United and 13 draws. The form guide is win, draw, win, loss, win for Everton. And for Man United is win, win, loss, win, win. Biggest win for Everton, 3-0 at home to Bournemouth. Man United's biggest win, 3-2 at home to Nottingham Forest. But before we discuss the actual game itself, and we'll fetch Luke Charlton back in here, who's been waiting patiently and heard our predictions in the background for this one, for the other games that we've been mentioning, and we'll get his thoughts we'll come to him now and just see. First of all, we know that Everton have got a 10-point deduction. A lot of clubs, Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, Burnley, all looking at potential legal action against Everton, saying they should have had it done a lot sooner than what they did, and potentially being deducted the points that they've got sooner than what they have been deducted them, and deserve to probably be going down a lot earlier than what potentially could do this season, should it happen later on in the season. But with the 10-point deduction, do you think it's the correct point deduction for them, Luke? And also, do you see, and also, if you don't think it's the correct one, what do you think the correct punishment should have been for Everton? Do you think they should have had more points? And if Everton's points deduction do get upheld, because I know Everton's appealed against it, we know there's some potential choices over City and Chelsea, Man City and Chelsea. Do you think they should follow suit and get some points deducted as well?
I think, it's a fairly unprecedented situation that Everton find themselves in. I think they've kind of been caught up in a bit of a storm of pressure being applied to the Premier League and the FA, where there's a lot of a lack of clarity, I'd say, with the finances for a lot of clubs over the past few years. And I think they've essentially been not made to be a scapegoat. I think rightfully so. There's been a lot that Everton have done wrong financially. And you look at a lot of the decisions that they've made over recent years with acquisitions of players like James Rodriguez, splashing out, I think, over 45 million on players like Sandro, a young Spanish striker that not many people had heard of outside of La Liga, coming in and not really doing a lot for the club. And I think there was talk recently I'd heard that when Rafa Benitez was at the club, that they were expecting a kind of top 6 finish, and they obviously were struggling at that point. So I think there's a lot of mismanagement that's happened at the top of the chain at Everton, and I think it's very much kind of coming to a point now where they've been caught out for it ultimately. And I think I think this does set a marker where Manchester City and Chelsea have had a lot of a lot of scrutiny put their way in recent times. And I think that we won't hear the end of this. I think it may take a while for that sort of stuff to come through. I think the slight difference potentially that Chelsea and City have had in this scenario is they can, behind the scenes, still pump a lot of money into fighting it before it gets to this point. I think there's a lot of information and a situation that we're maybe not completely privy to that is happening behind closed doors that will eventually come out. I'm sure it will, but there's a lot there. I think that still needs to be unpacked, and I think it's going to drag out for as long as it can for those clubs. But for Everton, I think the one saving grace I think they've had is, as much as they've had some difficult seasons the last few years, that Sean Dyche has got them performing fairly well in the recent games, and I think with a very kind of morale-raising victory over Palace in their last match, that they almost enabled themselves to have this cushion where even with a 10-point deduction, they aren't at the bottom of the Premier League. And I think going into this game against Manchester United, who, although technically are the informed team in the Premier League, having picked up the most points of any team over the last 5 games, are very inconsistent and have a lot of their own worries and a lot of their own issues going into the match. And I think Goodison Park is going to be rocking because the fans are going to want to take on that mentality of very much it's us against them and really see that played out on the pitch. So I think Everton will be buoyant as much as their season has been sort of thrown into disarray.
Yes, absolutely there, Luke. Absolutely. Completely agree with what you've just said there regarding City and Chelsea, and also what you've said regarding Everton as well. Paul, what's your take on the Everton 10-point deduction? Do you think they should have had more, or do you think it should have been done a lot sooner?
Well, it probably should have been dealt with sooner, but I agree with Luke. There's a lot to unpack here. When you're talking about financial regulations, you have to look at a number of different factors. First of all, have they broken just the league financial regulations, or have they broke the international financial reporting standards or the general accepted accounting principles guideline as well? If they have gone against both of those, then the action should be a lot stricter. In the case of Juventus, for example, in Italy, I can tell you, though, that what will happen is, as this sort of progresses, this is going to get worse and worse. I don't think there should be a 2-tier system here. I think if Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City have also broke the same rules, then the same punishment needs to apply. And I think if accounting standards have been broken, then that needs to be looked at from a criminal perspective as well, because there are laws in relation to that. After anybody that knows anything that happened with Enron knows that these things are looked at much more closely now than what they used to be. This is going to open a can of worms that the Premier League is. I hope they know what they're dealing with. But I personally think every team should be audited at least once a year in the Premier League with this amount of money involved. Every team should receive an accounting audit at least once a year, because this is threatening to get out of control, and you're dealing with a lot of money in the Premier League right now, and it needs to be better controlled and tighter controlled than it is. And I think Luke made a great point when he's speaking of Everton spending, buying in the likes of James Rodriguez. They didn't have the funds for that. They're in a serious situation now where they're going to face legal action, and £300 million, I should say. I'm sorry, I'm in Canada. I keep calling it dollars. £300 million. I can tell you as a third-year accounting student that what will have to happen is that Everton will have to record that legal action on their notes, on their financial statements, that there is a pending legal action. Now, their lawyers can comment on that if they want and say whether they think it's going to be successful, but they have to report it under the disclosure principle. So that means potential foreign investors that may not know about this may be wanting to stay away from that, especially seeing as though it's come out that Everton may be struggling to make that payment.
Yes, especially with the 777 who could potentially take over the club, saying they don't have the enough funds to pay the clubs who, if they are successful in that pursuit, because the clubs that are in pursuit of that is Leeds United, Burnley Football Club, Southampton, and Leicester City, who are all going to be trying to get legal action against Everton for that. Now we're going to touch on the game briefly, just a quick overview on the game, as we already touched upon the form guide and everything. Paul, I'll come to you first. We've touched upon their point deduction. How do you see Everton as a squad and as a team being able to put this behind them going into Sunday? And do you think they could have a positive impact on the field against Manchester United? I know you touched upon it briefly there in last bit, but do you want to expand on a bit more on how you think that game's going to go and give us your prediction at the end of that one, Paul?
Oh, I think Everton will be well up for it. I think Everton will have their entire support behind them. I think they'll be more motivated than ever. And I think Sean Dyche at the moment has got this Everton team playing good football. And I think, to be honest with you, I think they're going to win this game. I have no doubt in my mind about that. And I don't think they'll be troubled at all by this 10-point deduction. In fact, I think it will motivate them even more.
Yes, if we were to ask you for a score prediction, Paul, what are you going to go for?
2-0 to Everton.
Thank you, Merton. Luke, we'll come to you next. What do you see? How do you see this game panning out, and what do you reckon the score's going to be? You've obviously seen the form, which I'll just put back up on the screen there for you, man, which is win, draw, win, loss, win for Everton, and win, win, loss, win, win for Manchester United. I see this game going, Luke, overall.
I think I have to agree with Paul. I mean, it's going to be such an atmosphere at Goodison Park because they're going to, as I said, they're going to have that mentality of very much it's us against them. And I think when Goodison Park is rocking, it's a ludicrous place to be for some teams. And Manchester United at the moment, very much so, don't look like they can handle a lot of pressure when it comes to the intense games. And I think the opening 10 minutes will be very eye opening because if Everton could take an early lead, which I can see with Dwight McNeil and Jack Harrison whipping balls into the box and really making a presence known, with Doucouré being a physical presence in the box, and if Calvert-Lewin's playing or Beto, whoever may be up top for Everton, they're going to cause a lot of problems to wherever Man United's backline is, particularly as I think Johnny Evans is out. I think they're still having a bit of a makeshift defence at the moment. And I really do think Everton are going to want to get in and press and be on the front foot very early on. And Sean Dyche's sides are kind of known for being physical and known for being energetic. And that is something that Ten Hag has struggled with, I think, ever since he's come into the Premier League. When a team doesn't really play in a system, they sort of just are combative and are winning all the second balls, then I think that's when he's always on the back foot. So yeah, Everton will be right up there and really, really confident, I think, in their ability to win the game. So I don't think it will be goalless for Man United, but I think Everton could win. I'm thinking 3-1 because I think they could take an early lead and then maybe add a second within the first 20 minutes. They'll calm down a little bit. They'll go back into their shell a little bit, and I think United could score in the second half. But then, as United are pushing for an equaliser, Everton could catch them on the break. And I think it's going to be another energetic game, and I think a great way actually to kind of round off the weekend fixtures, starting off with Liverpool City and then ending Everton Man United. I think it's going to be a great weekend.
Yes, absolutely, Luke. Absolutely, I think Everton may edge it as well. I think I'm going for narrow 2-1 victory. I'm all going for an Everton win here. 3-1 from Luke, 2-0 from Paul, and 2-1 from myself for the Toffees this weekend against Manchester United. I think Man United will come unstuck against the Toffees, and there will be too much for them to get past in the game there. So just before we're going to take a quick break and recap what games we've got coming up on the channel. But before we do that, just say a big thank you to Luke Charlton for coming on. Luke is a guest over on Football Live on Brila FM, one of our partner channels over there, which is, we don't have any stuff there, but we get people on from there. We help out them from time to time with some of the stuff that they may need. So Luke, just want to say thank you for coming on. And are you on the show, one of the shows this weekend, mate, or are you on the show this weekend?
Yes, I think I'm covering a game on Sunday. I'm not 100% sure what it is off the top of my head. I'll have a quick look. Yeah, I've got Real Sociedad versus Sevilla on Sunday, so I'll be on the show there. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. It's been great talking football with you guys.
Thanks, Luke. No problem. It's nice to have met you.
And that's where we again, Luke, after we've done a few bits behind the scenes, after we've helped out behind the scenes with you for a few of the shows. Football Live. Good luck for the show on Sunday over there, my friend.
Cheers. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Luke. So that's there with Luke Charlton. Thank you very much for Luke taking his time out of his day. Now let's just recap what games we've got coming up live for you this weekend. Starting off on Saturday, we have got Brentford against Arsenal, which kicks off at 5:30, but we'll have a comprehensive review show from all of these Saturday's 3 o'clock results. Kick from around about 4:45 with myself and Paul, and we'll also hopefully be joined by Nicholas Jones as well for that one. And then on Sunday, we've got Paul in the presenter's chair with myself and Luke Charlton bringing you commentary on Spurs against Aston Villa at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon this coming weekend. We're now going to quickly move over to discuss more of the games that we've got coming up in the Premier League this weekend. So a big thank you again to Luke for joining us today. Really do appreciate his time talking to us about these Everton situation and also the big game between City and Liverpool as well. Next game then, Paul, we're going to be touching upon is a game which is down at the bottom of the table. It's Sheffield United against Bournemouth. Sheffield United have got 11 wins, 6 draws and 2 wins for Bournemouth in all competitions. But in the Premier League, Bournemouth have never beaten Sheffield United. There's been 1 win and 1 draw. And the form guide is draw, win, loss, loss, loss for Sheffield United. For Bournemouth, it's win, loss, loss. Their biggest win for Sheffield United, 2-1 home win against Wolves. And for Bournemouth, their 2-0 home win over Newcastle United, which you touched upon earlier when we mentioned Newcastle, Paul. How do you see this game going tonight? Well, the weekend. Should I say, how do you see this game going on the weekend? This Saturday afternoon.
To be honest, it's 2 largely out of form teams. I mean, looking at the goals that have been conceded by both sides, it seems to scream that there might be goals. But it's, to be honest with you, I think both sides have really not played very well at all this season. I can only see this being... I see this being a 0-0 draw, Russ. I mean, looking at what you've got here, like if you take a look at the Bournemouth, and they've just come off a 2-0 home win against Newcastle, so they'll be buoyant with that. But Sheffield United, let's just take a look at this. 10 goals in 3 games between Manchester United, Arsenal and Fulham. So it's going to be a very, very close game, that one, Ross.
Yeah, it is going to be a close game, that one, Paul. As you say, 2 teams out of form, and I don't see anyone coming out on top in that game. I think it could be a draw as well. I don't see many teams out of those, when those 2 come up against each other, them picking up all 3 points. Decide picking up all 3 points when we look at Sheffield United and Bournemouth, especially how the poor runs of form both teams have had. A bit of a boost for Sheffield United, though. Ollie McBurney and Amel Amadozic are available for selection this weekend. Paul Ekimoto mentioned in his press conference on Thursday, so that's a bit of a boost for them. So I think, and those 2 are 2 key players for Sheffield United. I think it'll be a draw as well, Paul. Are you going to be on 0-0 prediction for that one, mate?
I'm going to stick with 0-0. I just think both sides are just not playing good football right now. And Sheffield United, well, they have really struggled. And, well, Bournemouth, if you look in the 5 games, they've got 6 goals in 5 games. So you're looking at, I'm just going to pull out my calculator because I don't have the stat to hand, but they've got 6, let's have a look at that, 6 goals in 5 games. So, you know, you're looking at a 1.2 goals per game average. And if you look at their goals against, let's look at this over the 5 games, 3, 5, 6, 11, 13. So you're looking at a goals against average of 2.60. That's Bournemouth. Now, they're still ahead in the league than Sheffield United, but let's just take a quick look at Sheffield United. They've only had 5 goals in 5 games, so that's an average of we don't need a calculator for that. It's an average of 1 goal a game. But again, the same principle applies. 12 goals conceded in 5 games. That's a 2.40 goals against average, which is very, very high. This is
yeah. Too very high in terms of goals against each other there, Paul, which you pointed out to us, which before we went on air, which I was surprised about as well, Paul. So very interesting to hear that, Paul, and I think our listeners will find that interesting as well. I'm going to go for a draw as well, Paul, but I think there'll be goals in this one. I'm going for 1-1 draw. I think both teams will score, but like you, Paul, I think it will be a draw in this game, my friend. I think we'll see a draw in this one, 1-1 draw for me. Next game takes place at Kenilworth Road, and it's another team down at the bottom in Luton Town taking on Crystal Palace. We're near them in the table as well. We've got Luton with 18 wins, 16 draws, and 23 wins for Crystal Palace in all competitions. And Paul, would you believe it? This is the first ever meeting in the Premier League between the two sides.
I believe it. It's been a while since Luton Town has been in the top division.
Yes, and the form guide for Luton is a loss, draw, loss. For Crystal Palace, their form guide is loss, win, loss, draw. Biggest win for Luton was a 2-1 win away to Everton, yet to win at Kenilworth Road. And Crystal Palace's biggest victory was a 2-0 away win, as I had to say, Paul, against your boys Burnley at Turf Moor as well.
The more we dig into these teams, Russ, the more you're going to find these big wins against Burnley, so don't worry about it, it's fine.
But I think this is going to be a good game, actually, Paul. I think when you look at it, Luton, yet to win a term, Palace are going fairly decent away, I would say, especially under Roy Hodgson. Is shaping them all really, really well there. I think when you look at Luton, small one, probably I'd say the smallest budget out of the 3 promotion sides in the division, after, especially with how late they went up, and in terms of their planning for this season. I think when you look at it, Rob Edwards, should I say, their manager, Rob Edwards, has done a remarkable job considering they have he took them up via the playoffs, coming halfway through that season, finished the job off when Nathan Jones left, and then continue that trajectory into the Premier League. Yes, not going to win yet, but they've all put up some decent performances. Got a good draw against Liverpool in there, did Luton. I think this is going to be a good game. I think when you look at it, Crystal Palace probably may edge it on the day, but I think Luton will give it a really good go, Paul. How do you see this one going?
Well, I think Luton are starting to just kind of get themselves together a little bit, aren't they? They're looking a lot better now from the start of the season. I think out of the 3 teams that I predicted to go down at the start of the season, which was Burnley, Sheffield United and Luton, I think Luton are looking more likely of the 3 to survive. But I do not think that there will be enough against Crystal Palace. I think Crystal Palace will win this one 3-1.
And you know what, Paul? Some people may say you want like us to be a bit different. But be like you early on in the programme when you agreed with me on the Spurs Aston Villa one. I'm going to have to agree with you on this one as well. I think Palace will win by 3-1. I think they'll just have too much quality on the day for them, especially in the final third. And I don't think Luton will have enough to stop Crystal Palace every time they go on the attack. I think when you look at Crystal Palace, they've got good form, good attacking options so they can use. Luton have got some good attacking options as well, but with Luton's, they've not got Premier League experience.
No.
Whereas when you look at Crystal Palace's front line, they've all virtually played in the Premier League either towards back in the last season or so far this season or previous seasons as well. And I think that's what may just do this in terms of the games with who's going to come out on top in the game at Kenilworth Road. And that's why I'm going towards the Crystal Palace 3-1 victory like yourself, Paul.
Well, they've got goal-scoring threat as well, the Crystal Palace. Odesone Edward, who's got 5 goals this season. I know Carlton Morris has got 3 for Luton as well, but it's when I look at Crystal Palace, I think they're just generally. If I was to compare these two sides on paper, I think Crystal Palace are just stronger than Luton.
Yes, and I would have to agree with you there, Paul. We've got 3 more games to get through, and we'll go through these very, very quickly. So we'll just give a brief say on the games and give our score predictions for these 3, Paul. And we'll start off with your team, Burnley, up against West Ham United. So we'll just have a look at this one. So Burnley, 35 wins, 20 draws, and 39 wins for West Ham in all competitions. In the Premier League, it's 5 wins for Burnley, 3 draws, and 8 wins for West Ham. Form guide for Burnley: loss. 5 defeats on the bounce for Burnley now in the Premier League. For West Ham, it's a win, 3 defeats, and a draw. Biggest win for Burnley was 2-1 away win against Luton. As for West Ham, was that 3-1 home win against Chelsea. I can't see any other in this one, Paul, and I'm sorry to excuse me, and I'm sorry to say it to JB as well, but I can't see any other than a comfortable 3-0 victory for West Ham in this one. I think when you look at both teams, West Ham probably have got, when you look at it all over the pitch, have got more quality than Burnley and got more Premier League quality as well. And I just think Burnley haven't prepared well enough for the return to the Premier League after getting promoted last season, Paul. How do you see this one going? What's your score prediction, mate? Is it going to be another agreement in terms of score prediction for you on this one, Paul?
Well, this is what I think. I mean, they've already broken a record for losing the total amount of first home games in the season, which I believe was 6. They're going to lose again on Saturday. There's no question in my mind. Look at these statistics. A 0.75 average goals per game. That is only 3 goals in the last 5 games. You are looking at 14 goals conceded in the last 5 games. That's an average of 2.50 goals against average. That is outrageous. There is no way any team can survive in the Premier League. Didn't I say to you last season, Russ, why Leeds went down? You conceded, I think, 67 goals. Didn't I say to you that's why Leeds went down? No other reason. But
yeah, that's what you said, Paul.
We're well on the way to breaking that. Yeah,
and also, Paul, as well, Burnley are well on the way to breaking Derby County's lowest points record in the Premier League history.
Oh, I don't disagree with that either. The only thing I'll say that might give Burnley a bit of traction, if West Ham only have 1 win in the last 5 games, and that was a 3-2 home victory against Nottingham Forest. But I still think Burnley do not have the strength defensively, do not have the goal-scoring capability, they don't have the physical strength to get anything from this game. I only see this as going to be a 3-0 victory for West Ham.
And that, folks, is a third prediction that me and Paul have agreed on this broadcast for our listeners. We've got two more games to quickly go through, and we'll touch on this next one quickly, Paul, and we'll get your thoughts first. Nottingham Forest against Brighton. 17 wins for Forest, 11 draws and 11 wins for Brighton. Forest 1 win, 1 draw, no wins for Brighton in the Premier League era. The loss, win, loss, draw for Forest in their last 5 games. As for Brighton, draw, 3 draws, a loss, a draw. And then the biggest win for Forest, 2-0 at home to Aston Villa. For Brighton, 4-1 at home to Luton. Paul, Forest against Brighton. I think Forest will probably have too much for Brighton. It's based on how they've played the last few matches.
Well, I think both teams have been off form. If you look at Luton,
Yeah, they've both been off form. But I think Forest have played the better football out of the two teams for me. And I think the reason behind that is because of Brighton's European form. I think that's affected Brighton this season in terms of the Premier League. We always seem to see that with some of the teams there. But I think that's why I think Forest may edge this one. I'll give my prediction in a minute, but I think Forest will edge this one. But I still think Brighton will get a goal in it. But I'll let you know what score I'm going to go for shortly. But Paul, how do you see this one going there?
Well, I think it's got draw written all over it, to be honest. I think if you look at Brighton, 4 out of their last 5 have finished a draw. For Forest, they've had 1 win in 5. That, of course, has been their home victory against Aston Villa, which was an excellent result for them. But they've also drawn against Crystal Palace and Luton. Games that certainly they should have beaten Luton, but were not able to do so. And, of course, the defeat to West Ham and Liverpool. Well, Anfield's a horrible place to go to. I certainly don't think that Forest could have gotten anything out of that game. But it's if you take that Liverpool game out of the equation, you've still got some pretty mediocre results there as well. I'm going for 1-1 in this one, Russ.
Yes, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Nottingham Forest, me, Paul. I think it'll be a 2-1 win for Nottingham Forest. I think Forest will just have enough quality. And a bit of bad news for Forest fans. Taoroni is going to be out for a few weeks with an injury. Steve Cooper confirmed earlier today.
That's a big loss.
Yeah, big loss for Nottingham Forest there. I should have probably mentioned that at the start, Paul, and you might have changed your prediction. But since your prediction's locked in,
I still think it'd be 1-1 if they had Tawo 1 year or they didn't have Tawo 1 year. I think it's got draw written all over this one, to be honest.
Yeah, and even though my prediction's locked in, I didn't know about that, but I think Forest have just got a bit more quality in the final third with the players I've played recent weeks, because Tawo's not been playing last few matches either with this injury, and then they just had a scan over the international break, and that's why he's now just been confirmed how long he's going to be out for. But I think Forest will win by 2-1 there. So Luke Charlton, if you're listening, I think your team will win for that game against Brighton at the weekend. Now to the final game of the weekend, and it is, and before we go on to that, we'll just tell you when it is. I'll show you this again. Monday Night Football, 8 o'clock kickoff is our next place of call, and it's Craven Cottage as well. It's Fulham against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Fulham, 26 wins. There's been 25 draws and 45 wins for Wolves in all competitions. In the Premier League, 2 wins for Fulham, 6 draws and 6 wins for Wolves. The form guide is a loss, draw, loss, win for Fulham. And for Wolves is a win, loss, draw, win, draw. Biggest win for Fulham, 3-1 against Sheffield United at home. Wolves, 2-1 at home against Manchester City. Is their biggest win at home this season for them, which is equaled it with when they beat Spurs late on by 2-1 as well in their last game before the international break. So, with that in mind, Paul, Fulham against Wolves, how do you see this one going, mate?
It's a tricky one. Fulham are very much out of form at the moment. Just taking a look at just the last 4 games. Let's take that Sheffield United win out of the equation. They've 3 defeats and a draw. And they've conceded in those 4 games 7 goals and only scored 2. They've been outscored 7-2 in the last 4 games. So once again, let's break out Paul's little calculator here. In the last 4 games, they've got a 1.75 goals against average, and goals for 0.50. This is really, really poor for Fulham. They have to try to turn this around. The thing is, that Wolves are sort of coming into a more informed situation. Let's take Wolves in contrast. You start off with the 2-1 victory over Bournemouth. They get a draw at home to Newcastle. Now, they did lose to Sheffield United, but they've then returned with the win against Spurs. But just in the last 4 games alone, they've conceded 2, 4. They've conceded 6 in the last 4 games, but in contrast have scored 7. So they have they've done quite well, in fairness, of Wolves. So this one's going to be a tight one. But looking at some of the players that perhaps bring the biggest threat, well, you've got Hwang Hee-chan. He's got 6 goals for Wolves, and Pedro Neto has got 7 assists. You're looking at a pretty good Wolves team here, Russ. And I'll be honest with you, I think Wolves is just going to edge this one by 2-1.
And I'm going to go for a 2-0 Wolves victory as well, Paul. I think Wolves will win by 2-1 in
We're
this
not
game.
going to be on Barry's Christmas card list, are we?
No. Sorry to Barry, and sorry to the good friend Ryan Francis as well, if you're listening. I know you're a Fulham fan as well, so sorry. We're both sorry about that. And we're not going to be on your Christmas card list either. Well, just before we do go, let me just remind you what we've got coming up on the channel. Sort of on Saturday evening, we've got a comprehensive results show from around about 5 o'clock, which will head straight into, after we've done that, we'll head straight into this game, Brentford against Arsenal. 5:30 kickoff on Saturday. Join Paul James and myself, Russ Vernon, for all the coverage of that one. And we'll also be joined, hopefully, by Nicholas Jones, who will bring us that comprehensive results show in the build-up to the game at the G-Tech Community Stadium. That's where the game's being played at. And then on Sunday, join Paul James, who's going to be in the presenter's chair, with myself, Russ Vernon, alongside Luke Charlton, which has got Spurs against Aston Villa, 2 o'clock kickoff. Only here on the commentary, we're also live on JB Sports Storm FM, commentary up 2, and focus on football. Hopefully we'll have those games on all of those platforms. But unfortunately, tonight's preview show was unable to be brought to us by the team at Storm FM due to technical reasons. We'll hopefully have those ironed out before the weekend's action. So a big thank you to Luke Charlton, who was on earlier on today. It was really good of his insight into 2 of the games that we've covered tonight, to get his couple of predictions there. Big thank you to my co-host, Paul James, as always. Thank you for joining me again tonight, Paul.
You're welcome.
And we want to say thank you to you, the listeners and the viewers out there. This has been the Premier League preview show. We'll be back on Thursday with the review. Next Thursday with the preview show for the following week's matches. We'll be back on Tuesday with a review show of the matches taking place this weekend. From all of the team here, it's a very goodbye to you all. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you soon, guys. Take care. Have a good one. And we'll see you in the not so dear future. Goodbye.